Welcome everyone. Today's topic is saving your time and money with real estate property management. Okay, so I'm going to give you the secrets of how you can take your rental portfolio to the next level by having great property management skills, technology, and resources. Okay, so let's dive into it. So just to begin with, for you to understand, let's just talk about and briefly go over the pros and cons of owning rentals, right? In my opinion, the pros of owning rentals are huge. That's how you can build wealth through real estate, owning rentals. Because guess what? You're leveraging from other people's money and other people's time. So you're going to have your tenants pay for your property. And on top of that, you are going to have positive cash flow in your pocket. Okay. That's how you over time are going to build a great net worth. Now, there are some cons of owning rentals as everything, right? So number one, dealing and managing the property, working with the tenants, making sure that the property is not neglected, and having happy tenants that they pay on time. Okay, so that's been a big challenge for most landlords, and obviously having vacancies. That's a big deal, right? Because then that's going to impact your bottom line. Here we go over into the next section of the rental. Okay, so the pros. Overall, as you can see on the screen, it's just a no-brainer to do rentals, especially for the next 2-3 years. Okay, rentals are going to outperform flips and wholesales. Okay, now rentability. Okay, let's just spend about a minute explaining what this is and what you need to pay attention to when you're thinking about becoming a landlord. Okay, so when you're thinking about owning rental properties, you need to understand the rentability of a neighborhood, because guess what, there are neighbors that support flips, others that support rentals, so you have to invest in the right neighborhoods. Okay, what we mean by that is that every area has a rentability score. What's your likelihood of having very little vacancy? What's the likelihood of having a lot of cash flow because you are in a rental market that makes sense? Because there are some markets where the purchase price of the property is still under 200,000, and yet guess what? The rents are through the roof. Today we're going to share some of the top 20 rental markets, okay, so that you can focus your search on those markets. Obviously, some of the factors as shown on the screen: population growth, rental prices. To me, one of the biggest ones is obviously rental prices. To have an investment into a neighborhood with the objective to become a landlord, you have to have two factors. Number one, property prices need to be affordable, less than 200,000, and yet the rents for a 2-3 bedroom should be over 1,500. That's the sweet spot. Okay, purchase price less than 200, rents over 1,500. Just apply the rule of the 1%. What it means is that, let's say you buy the property and rehab it, all in 150,000. Guess what? 1% of 150,000 is 1,500. So what it means is that your rent should be at least 1,500 for you to cash flow. So if all-in expenses are, let's say, 1,500 and you're collecting only 1,200, guess what? You're going to be in the negative. So always think about the rentability of a market, and it is very easy to understand with the rule of thumb that I just gave you. Take into account the purchase price, and then take the rehab all-in expenses and the 1% of that amount, and that should be your target rental market, okay, for that neighborhood. Okay, is the sound okay, everyone? Okay, let's continue. Now, let's talk about rental property management, okay, because guess what? One of the things that I've noticed with many investors is that they're so eager to get into rentals, and then they decide to take on property management themselves. that could be a big nightmare, because guess what? You not only need to understand the landlord-tenant ordinance, but you also have to be on top of rent collection, and not only that, but getting phone calls in the middle of the night when something just went wrong at the property. So it's a big headache, to tell you the truth. So you have to leverage resources, and the right resources, so that your property is kept up in a good maintenance phase. And not only that, but your tenants are happy. And obviously, when tenants are happy, your turnover is going to be less, and you are going to collect rent on time. Because sometimes when landlords neglect properties, guess what? Tenants tend to withhold rent payment. They shouldn't do that, but they do it because they're not happy. Okay, so let's talk about what you need to focus on and how you need to do it for you to have a successful rental empire that runs smoothly with the right property management. Okay, so what is it that you need to do? Once you buy a property, obviously you need to advertise the property, and then you need to have a good screening system in place. Okay, what we mean by that is that when you advertise the property, you're going to get a lot of applicants because the rental market is very hot right now. But you need to pick and choose the best tenants. It might be common sense, right? But there are some tricks and secrets I'm going to show with you next. Tenant screening, we're going to go over and show you exactly where you need to look at. We're going to look at some applicants to show you some examples. And then obviously, once you pick a good tenant that is going to be collectible, what we mean by good tenant is somebody that makes enough income, okay, to be able to afford the property. And guess what? I'm going to share another rule of thumb. I want to make sure that you're writing down all these rule of thumbs because they work like a champ. I'm very fanatic of rule of thumbs because I don't need a calculator. I don't need anything. I just need these small shortcuts to analyze, to understand whether I go or move forward with somebody or not. So the rule of thumb for screening tenants is the rule of the 40. What it means is that take the rent amount. Let's assume the rent amount is $1,000, just to keep it simple. Multiply that by 40. That should be the yearly income of the tenant. Okay, so they need to make at least 40,000 to be a collectible tenant. If they make less than 40,000, forget it. They won't be able to afford your property. Obviously, $1,000 in rent, it's nothing. Average, I would say, is more like $1,500. So how much should your combined household income be for your prospective tenants if the rent is $1,500? Multiply that times 40. That should be 60,000. So the combined household income should be at least 60,000 for them to afford a $1,500 monthly rent payment. Okay, super important. The rule of 40. Let's move on. Property management. When we started owning rentals, it became a nightmare when we started to take phone calls from the tenants. Okay, just in the middle of the night, just for nothing, they would call you. Not only that, but you need to be on top of rent collection, okay? And you also need to make sure that you renew leases when they're due, because we typically tend to increase rent once the lease renews. So if you're not on top of all of that, and not only that, let's not forget the landlord-tenant ordinance, okay? Guess what? The landlord-tenant ordinance favors tenants 100%. So let me just give an example, and especially in the city of Chicago, when you rent to somebody in the Cook County, especially in the city of Chicago, there are so many rules that you need to follow. Like, for instance, when you collect the security deposit, right, you need to give them a receipt. You need to put that money into an escrow account, so you cannot commingle personal funds with the security deposits. When the tenant moves out, you have 30 days to send them a written document with expenses incurred after the move out. If you needed to repair something that they damaged, you need to put it in writing and send it to them. And then you have 45 days after they moved out for you to return the security deposit. Okay, if you, guess what, happen to miss any of the regulations that I just mentioned, and they take you to court, you're going to need to pay them for every single offense twice as much as the security deposit. So it could become insane. Okay, so that is why, guess what, most landlords in the city of Chicago do not take security deposits because the rules surrounded the landlord-tenant ordinance. So what they do is they take a non-refundable moving fee. Okay, that ranges from 500. I've seen from 250 all the way to $1,000. A non-refundable moving fee. Okay, but that's especially in the city of Chicago. If you're in the suburbs, it's not as strict, but still, you need to follow some guidelines like the ones I just showed you. Have a separate account just for the security deposits. Make sure that you send them an itemized list of expenses within 30 days after the move out, and return the security deposit after 45 days. In most rentals, what we decided to do is just to charge a moving fee, non-refundable, just to avoid the headaches of the landlord-tenant ordinance. Because guess what? That also changes, okay? And if you're not on top of that, boom, you might be asking for trouble. So we just want to keep things simple, okay? So we, particularly, we ask for a non-refundable moving fee, okay? And that has worked really well for us. Now, once you have a tenant, right, in place, let's move on to the property management, keeping up with the maintenance of the property, making sure the tenant is happy. To us, it was a big pain once we decided to try out many companies. And you know why? Because there were two things that I didn't like about property management companies, that they charge a percentage of the total rental income. So let's assume that your property is rented for $1,000. They're going to charge anywhere between 6 to 10%. So let's assume 10%. So that's $100 every month in property management. But guess what? It gets worse. I realized they don't make money on the percentage that they tap into for your rental. They make money on the maintenance items. So when I got the monthly statement, you know, they happen to change a light bulb or did just minor work on the property. Whoa, it was, every incident was over 100. It was just ridiculous. Okay, so we were pretty much losing money by hiring these companies that they were charging an arm and a leg. So guess what? Guess what we did? We looked into many property management companies. So we found one, and I'm going to share with you all the details, okay, of our resources that met my criteria. My criteria was, I don't want you to tap into my rental income, because if I increase that on a yearly basis, I don't want your fees to go up on a yearly basis. Why? Number one. Number two, I don't want you to use your expensive contractors, and sometimes they're not the best, right? They don't do the best type of work. So I said, I just want a flat fee per door, and on top of that, I need you to use our contractors because we trust them. They have great judgment, they do quality work, and they do it for a very reasonable price, okay? So I want the best of two worlds. I don't want to take the phone calls. All I want from them is to dispatch our crew depending on the issue. I want them to do the rent collection. I want them to renew the leases. I want them to be on top of every rental inspection. Okay, so super important. So I'll share our resources with you at the end of the presentation. So Nelima is asking, what's the typical rent increase? Okay, so we like to increase rents by an average of $50 per month. Okay, so if the rent is, let's say, $250, we like to increase it to $1,300. And guess what? Most landlords like to have a 2-year lease. Guess what? We stick to 1-year lease. Why? Because of the same reason. We want to increase rents on a yearly basis. Because this is what I found. Even if you've signed, let's say, a 5-year lease, okay? Let me give you that example. For security purposes, guess what? After 6 months, if the tenant decides to move out, guess what? You're out of luck. You might get to keep the security deposit, but guess what? They're not entitled to pay the remainder of the 5-year term. Okay, it is that simple. So what the court says is that you have to do everything under your possibilities to rent the property to a different tenant as soon as possible, just to minimize the damages. Okay, so the tenant, the law is always going to favor tenants. Okay, so even if they break out of the lease, you have to try to rent it as soon as possible. We've had that case happen a couple of times, and we don't want to prevent people from moving on with their lives. No, we just want them to let us know 2 months in advance, ideally, else 30 days at a minimum. So that is why I personally have not found much value in having a 2-year lease, okay? Because once we do a yearly lease, I want to check out the tenant, right? Because maybe I don't want to renew the lease. Maybe I don't like those tenants to continue to live in the property. Maybe they don't take great care of the property. So I just want to do a yearly lease. And then if I like them, the rent is going to go up. So I got tenants used to the rent going up on a yearly basis. Why? Because we want to keep the great tenants, and we want to make sure that they value the house, the premises that we give them, and therefore ask for a rent increase on a yearly basis. So that's just a tip of advice. Now, advertising the property, you have many ways to advertise the property. So I'm going to share some of them right here with you that we use. First of all, you need to know how much to rent the property for, and there are a couple of resources, primarily 3 resources. You can use the MLS to pull comps, okay? You can use Rentometer and Zillow. So Rentometer gives you a median rent price for the entire neighborhood. But guess what? Zillow is one of the most accurate websites when it comes to rental prices. In fact, guess what? ChicagoDealVault integrates with Zillow for the rental prices. So in ChicagoDealVault, when we tell you what the property is going to rent for, guess where we're getting that number from? From Zillow. Okay, Zillow is super accurate. Rentometer is too generic. MLS, it's also a great resource. Okay. Next, so when we advertise a property, we put it on Zillow. They charge you $5. Before it used to be free. Now they charge you $5. We started to do Facebook, and for sure we do Craigslist. Okay. Next, we also advertise through the Section 8 website because we love Section 8 tenants. The reason why is because you have your rent on time on the first. Not only that, but they have already screened the tenants. So you're going to be getting collectible tenants, okay? And something that many people don't like, but I do like, is that Section 8 does yearly inspections. Most tenants, most landlords may not like that. I do like it. You know why? Because that's a way for us to keep up the property in good shape. They're gonna go inspect the property. If they find issues, we'll be happy to fix them. And that's just a way for a win-win for everyone. Our property is in good shape, the tenant is happy, and Section 8 obviously continues to pay the rent. So to me, I love Section 8. Next, MLS. Now, how are you gonna rent out the property? So you can hire, once you do the marketing, you also have the option to hire a real estate broker to rent your property. So they're gonna typically charge you first month's rent, okay? So we have also, I'm gonna share this resource with you. We have a leasing agent that is part of ChicagoDealVault, and he is amazing, okay? So I'm gonna share that with you. Phil, please, at the end of the webinar, remind me of all the resources I'm talking about that we're gonna share them, okay? Next, so this is optional. Some people, if you decide to rent your own rental, don't use your personal cell phone, use a Google Voice number that forwards to your cell phone, okay? You don't wanna have your cell phone, your personal number, on all these marketing materials. Okay, so make sure that you use a Google Voice number, because guess what? If you decide to hire a leasing agent, but all the marketing is under the Google Voice number, you can forward that to the leasing agent. You can forward that to yourself. You can forward that to anybody. Or if you're on vacation, but you need the tenant, I mean, you need the unit to be leased, you can have somebody else take on the calls if you're not available. So never put in your cell phone number. Always use a Google Voice phone. Super, super important. Okay, for those of you who are doing your own marketing. Rental application, okay, through Zillow, they can submit an application. We have our own rental application. We also use 2 websites, okay? So we use rentapplication.net, okay? And let me show you what that looks like in just a second so that you get an idea. Right here, when somebody's interested in the property, you're gonna get through rentapplication.net a link, okay, that you're gonna forward to your prospective tenants. They're gonna pay $39, and they're gonna fill all the information in the form. When they submit, guess what? This is where you're gonna get on your portal. So for instance, this is a perspective. So what I really like about this is that you're gonna get all their contact information. They're gonna be able to update pay stubs, which to me is very important. I wanna know the source of income, bank statements, assets, liabilities, employment information, all of these, pet information. So here we're able to see the pay stubs and any extra information available that they wanna share. So right here, you see everything at a glance, okay? And by the way, if you're a landlord, this is a free service. The $39 is paid out to, in this case, rentapplication.net. Something that I really like about this portal is that you can see the credit, okay? So in this particular case, the tenant had an incredible credit, 778. So this is what I look for. Number 1, I look at income. Remember, multiply the rent times 40, because I don't want to look at the credit. I don't want to look at anything else if they cannot afford the unit. So I want to know, that's actually my first question. If I'm on the phone with them, they're interested in the property that we're renting for $1,500. My first question is, how much money does the entire household or the combined household make on a yearly basis? If they say 40, I'm going to say, you know, I'm sorry, but we have a protocol and you need to make at least 60,000 to afford this property. Unfortunately, we cannot move forward. And they could have the best credit, they could have the best references, we won't take them. They need to be collectible. For that, they need to make enough money, right? I don't want to struggle with them not paying on time and then getting into an eviction, so forget it. First of all, once they meet their requirement that they can pay for the property, then I'm gonna go into the credit, okay? So I would like to see credit over 600, ideally, right? When I see credit over 700, whoa, it's a good sign. The second thing that I look at is the eviction report, okay? I don't want to see any evictions. If they've been evicted in the past, guess what? It's a big no-no, because they know the system, they've been there, done that. I don't want to be another guinea pig in the eviction proceedings, right? So if they have an eviction filing, out of the question. They could even have the income, they could have the credit, but if they have an eviction, no, it's a big no-no. And then I move on to the criminal, okay? We've seen something like really crazy stuff, you know, narcotics, weapon possession, we've seen some misdemeanors, but we're just very careful, right? That we don't lease out to like people who are not supposed to be in your property, right? That may cause trouble. But again, this is a sequence. First of all, income, 2, eviction reports. Obviously, we like to check the criminal, and that's pretty much it. Something that is super important, friends, guess what? There are 7 protected classes, okay? That means that you cannot discriminate against sex, gender, source of income. Okay, this is important. Many people disregard and they forget about this. Like for instance, what that means is that you cannot discriminate against Section 8 tenants. Okay, and many people do. Many people discriminate against them. That's a big deal, especially if you have a license, a real estate license. It's a big deal. But guess what? There's only one thing that you can discriminate against, and that is financials. Okay, if they do not qualify financially, you can legally say, I'm sorry, you do not make enough income. Because guess what? Even now, criminal, that's not the first report that you're supposed to look at. Okay, you cannot discriminate against their background. Okay, it is just insane, but that's how the law is. They protect tenants 100%. Okay, and that's fine, but also we want to make sure that we get collectible and people in good standing. So I'm going to share with you the 7 protected classes next, but I just want to give you the quick rule of thumb how we operate. Let's move on. So that's an example of the rent application. We'll share this resource with you, so we have a link to a rental application, but what we like to do is we use the paper form if they go to the property, if for whatever reason they don't have access to the internet version. But we always send them to the online form, so we get everything right away within seconds. Okay. So here again, this is what I was sharing with you earlier. We look at the income number 1, the credit, employment, crime records, and evictions. Okay, for me, evictions is really, really big. Okay, actually, I should put that in here as after income, my second screening criteria. No eviction records. Super, super important. Okay, there's no way back on the eviction. Okay, now rental package, this is super important and we're going to share this with you. We have a link and to the leases. So when you rent out, again, you need to follow the tenant landlord ordinances. Okay, so what it means is that you need to have them sign disclosures. So you have the lead-based paint, the mold disclosure. If you're a real estate broker, you need to disclose that you're not representing them. So we're going to share all the disclosures, the leases that we use, that we rent when we rent a unit. Okay, so we're going to share this with all of you, including the disclosures. Super, super important. Okay, they need to sign disclosures because should you go to court, they're going to review your paperwork, and if you are not disclosing enough, then you're going to be in trouble. Okay, so we'll make sure that you have all the package to lease out. Okay, so next step, the legal documentations, leasing agreements, most important after accepting the tenant. Okay, so setting expectations, right? For us, we like to make sure that pets, that's, you know, the gray area that we found with our tenants. They said they don't have pets, then later we find out they have a cat, or they say they have 1 dog and we see 2, 3 dogs. So that's something that we need to explain to them. Okay, in our case, no pets allowed except cats, or sometimes some properties, single family homes, dogs are okay, but a certain breed. Okay, because this is important. If you happen to have a tenant with a dangerous breed, like a pit bull or something, and something happens, your insurance is not going to cover. So super, super important. That's also good to mention. We've had people, great tenants, but they have very dangerous pets. We cannot accept them because our insurance is not going to cover. Okay, so it's unfortunate, but we just need to play it safe. Okay, so we sign the lease digitally all the time. And then as to the moving date, we just do the inspection, make sure that we check the condition of the property, document the condition of the property, take some pictures, how you are giving them the property, because that's the expectation. When they move out, it should be in the similar condition. Obviously, there's going to be some wear and tear, that it's okay. It needs to be in a broom clean condition. That's about it. So you need to set the expectations when they move in, okay? Now, when they move in, what we like to do is we introduce them to the property management, okay? Because we're not collecting rent. The property management is collecting rent on our behalf, okay? So that's some of the initial steps. When they sign the documents, we tell them who they're gonna send the payment to, and then the property management is gonna send them a welcome package, okay? We also remind them to make sure that they turn all the utilities in their name, like the water, the gas, electric, super, super important, okay? But that is all done through the property management. We don't babysit the tenant when it comes to the details of the protocols when they move in. That is all done by the property management company. Okay, so this is something really interesting, right? Self-managed versus professional management. So I just want to cover this really quick. My advice is that you don't self-manage the property, okay? Because I realize that when people want to do a lot, take on a lot, they do a poor job in all different aspects. So you want to have the professionals do their job, okay? So if you don't have a leasing license, if you don't have experience or software for property management, it's best to leave this for the experts, okay? But again, we're gonna share our resources that they'll charge you a flat fee and they get to use your own crew. So that's the best of the two worlds. Okay, so again, these are the 7 protected classes that I was telling you: race, color, religion, nationality, sex, disability, familial status, and then every I would say county may add some more. Okay, so you have to be very careful. That is why it's just better to have the professionals manage the properties for you, because they're going to be in charge of screening the tenants, the whole 9 yards. Now, if you decide to do it yourself, you're going to be in for big surprises. Okay, I do not recommend that. The savings, let me just tell you, we pay $50 a month just to have that peace of mind. It's just that simple. So I highly recommend you do not do your own property management. Okay, because if you make a mistake, right, and you end up in the court system, that can cost you thousands, okay? Because again, I want to emphasize the landlord-tenant ordinance favors tenants 110%, okay? In fact, let me just share, there's an eviction moratorium, which means that landlords cannot evict tenants, which is until January 9th, 2021, okay? But that's been extended for a few months already, okay? So just to give you an idea how the landlord ordinance is favoring tenants. Landlords have not been able to evict tenants since COVID, since last March, just to give you an idea. So imagine some landlords, they need to pay the mortgage payment, but yet they're not collecting rent. Who is the state favoring? Tenants. So that is why you've got to be very careful, right? If you decide to self-manage. So that is why it's not something that we recommend. We're going to talk about the eviction process in next. So when to legally evict tenants? That's just a great question. Let me just give you my advice. We've done only 2 evictions. And my advice is to not go that route. The way we've managed other people who have not been able to pay on time is that we work out a payment plan, or we've done cash for keys. And we're going to talk about that next. You don't want to go the eviction route, okay? Because it can take too long. They can damage the property. It could be just very nasty, and you don't want that, okay? So you want to avoid this process as much as possible. So I'm going to show you the different alternatives that you're going to have, and just the best way for you to handle non-collectible tenants. Okay, so if you decide to start an eviction, that means when somebody's not paying, typically we like to wait a couple of months, maybe 2-3 months. In fact, we just had a tenant, they owed us $3,000, and they just paid $2,000. So we waited for about 2 months. Not like we couldn't do anything about it, right? We had no choice, because even if we wanted to do an eviction. So I always like to work with the tenants, because guess what? Just like you and me, in the past, for some reason, we had money issues, and so do they. So we're humans, we need to work with them at all possible costs. Okay, so I've had cases where, I lost a job and then I just couldn't pay my living expenses. And it's been real, right? And that it could happen to anybody. So you just need to be cognizant of it and work with them, especially if they've been good tenants. You always want to keep good tenants. So this is where I draw the line. Super important. I'm going to share this with you. They could be behind $2,000-$3,000. Of course, it's going to hurt financially, but what I care about is that they tell me the truth. That they tell me, you know what, Hugo, I lost my job. They let me go right now. I'm working. I'm trying to borrow some money. I'm doing something about it. That's what I care about. This is what's not acceptable in my case when tenants lie, okay? Then I don't want to work with them anymore, because guess what? It's not then about the money anymore. It's about the principle, right? It's about their actions. So I don't want to work with somebody who is lying to me and saying, yeah, I'm going to pay you next week. I'm going to have the money in 2-3 weeks. And they said, oh, you know what? They know they won't have the money, but they're just taking you for a ride. I do not accept that, right? And for those cases, like, I would rather do cash for keys, right? I just don't want to have those tenants in the long run, okay? But I want to avoid the eviction process. That is why I rather take the hit now. Even you don't owe me anymore, I'll give you $1,000, but I need the unit in the next 3 weeks. I'd rather do that than go through the eviction process, especially now, right? With this uncertainty of COVID, you don't want to go the eviction route. It's going to take so many months. I'm just going to quickly show you the process to give you an idea how long this may take. But every county is different. So you have to have all the documents in place, okay, before you even start. You need to understand the law, right? So never do an eviction yourself. If you're thinking going this route, hire an eviction attorney. Okay, they're going to charge you anywhere from $500 to $750. It's just a one-time fee. You never want to do an eviction yourself because you don't know the law, nor do you want to know it. Okay, you want to be an investor, buy properties. So this is what the attorneys are going to do. They are going to understand how the law works, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay. So this is super important, right? You don't want to procrastinate. So you want to be proactive and understand what the plan for the tenant is. What is it that they need? How can you help? How can you help each other? Because you want to strike a win-win solution. You don't want the win-lose or a lose-win, okay? So you always want to aim for a win-win solution. That is why I found that cash for keys will work way better than this, right? Because you don't want to damage their credit, because this is going to go in their credit, and tough luck for them to get another rental unit in the future, right? So I'm not in the business of hurting other people's credit, for sure. I just want possession of the premises ASAP. And sometimes you're going to lose money with tenants that are not paying. That is why you need to do thorough screening ahead of time. You have to have collectible tenants, people who make enough money. Okay, so this is the timeline. Let's just go over the timeline. So the rent is due on the 1st, then on the 5th, if they have not paid, guess what? You need to issue the 5-day notice. Okay, super important. And guess what? If you're doing the self-management, you will need to do this yourself. But guess what? If you're not, the property management is going to do that. Now you have two options when you send out the 5-day notice. So I talked to the property management and they asked me, Hugo, they have not paid. So what's going to be your protocol? I'm going to say, for sure, if they don't pay on the 5th, send them a letter on the 6th, a 5-day notice, okay? Why? Because tenants are gonna get a message, you know, this landlord is not monkeying around, he understands the law, and they might take us to court. So that's just a message to send the tenants that you do understand how the law works and that they need to pay you on time, okay? But it's not with the intention to take them to court, okay? So because you have two options. If you send them just via regular mail, guess what? That 5-day notice is not enforceable in the court, okay? Super important. If you really want to be serious about sending a 5-day notice, guess what? You need to hire a server. They're going to charge you anywhere between $75 to $95, okay? And the property management company can dispatch the server. So the server will physically go to the property and they will pretty much wait for the tenant. And when they come, they will hand deliver the 5-day notice, okay? That is 100% enforceable in the court should you decide to move forward with an eviction, okay? But we don't want to do that. We don't want to waste $75 or $90 every month for every tenant that does not pay on time by the 5th, right? That just doesn't make any sense. But we do want to have a protocol, a system that if they don't pay on the 5th, we're going to send them a letter, which, by the way, it's not enforceable, but they don't know, or they may know that it's not enforceable, but we do know that is not enforceable. We just want to make sure that we have a protocol in place. So this is just my tip of advice. Always stick to sending a 5-day notice on the 6th of every month, even if it's not enforceable, okay? But when we have tenants that we really want to make sure they pay, like the tenant that I just told you that they owe us $3,000, for that case, I did tell the property management, please send the server, because then she's going to be like, oh my goodness, so this is serious. I'm getting somebody at my door handing me a 5-day notice. This is serious, right? So you send them a message, even I send the server, it's not my intention to do an eviction. It is that simple. My intention is to send them a message that it's a business, okay? I'm not a charity. So we are in the real estate business and we need to collect rent because we need to pay the mortgage, right? So that's just a tip of advice. Next, if they don't get a response, then serve the 5-day notice. That's just how we do it. And then you wait about 2-3 weeks for a court date. If you want to file an eviction, obviously you're going to need to hire an attorney and they're going to file the eviction for you, okay? And then 4-6 weeks, this is going to depend on the county. The county could take more, could be less. Some counties are very fast, like Cook County, it could take 6-9 months. DuPage, Kane County, I found could be pretty fast. You could have possession of the property or premises within 6 weeks, okay? But right now with COVID, the timeline is off the chart. Right now, you cannot evict tenants before January 9th, okay? So everything needs to be put in writing. So that is why we want to avoid the legal route, because you have to follow so many protocols, okay? Let me pull out the screen, take pictures, everything needs to be in writing. That is why you never want to self-manage the property. When you have the property management do all these for you, then you don't need to worry about it. But let me just show you how it works. You serve the notice, right? And then you have the certified mail, you can hire the server. This is just to make it official, okay? So this is the timeline. Next, then you're gonna hire an attorney to file the lawsuit in the county, okay? It's an official, you're gonna move forward with the eviction. Next, you're gonna get a hearing date, and this could be 3-4 weeks, who knows when, depending on the backlog. But right now, forget it. Even if you're able to evict tenants on January 9th, guess what? There's such a huge backlog that to get a hearing date could take 2, 3, 4 months. And guess what? In the meantime, you're not collecting any rent. So that is why you never want to do the eviction route, in my opinion. I'd rather do cash for keys a thousand times. Okay. So here, obviously you have to have the lease, receipts, all the disclosures, pictures, the whole 9 yards. Okay, when you're getting ready for the hearing, and then you have the lockout. Okay, so at this point is when the judge will either continue the case or give you possession of the premises. Okay, so they're gonna give deadline to the tenant to move out, and guess what? If they have not moved out by that date, you've got to reach out to the sheriff, and then the sheriff will actually go to the property. They're not going to kick them out. You need to have somebody take their possessions, put them on the curb, cover them up. The sheriff will just make sure that there are no altercations. Okay, so that's the last step in the eviction. And then finally, the aftermath is evictions, right? So when the eviction happens, you're going to get possession of the premises, and then you're going to get a judgment against the tenant. This is what I was telling you. I'm not in the business of hurting other people's credit, right? Because if they get a judgment, an eviction in the credit is pretty bad. Their FICO score is going to drop no less than 50 to 75 points. Not only that, the likelihood of them getting another rental place is going to be very slim. So I don't want to do that for them. And then what are you going to do with the judgment? Even if you have a judgment for, let's say, $5,000, what is that good for? What do you need that for? Because if they don't have money in the first place, you're not going to collect a penny. There are third-party companies that you can hire, give them the judgment, and they can go after them. So they can try to do wage garnishment, okay? And they're going to charge you maybe 1/3 of what they collect, but that is very, very difficult, okay? So that is why we never want to go that route. I don't want to hurt people's credit. That's because I want to get a win-win solution. That's it. Going the eviction route, it's not a win-win solution. You know what the eviction route is? It's a lose-lose solution. It's a lose for the tenant, and it's a lose for you as a landlord. So avoid evictions at all possible cost, okay? This is what I was telling you. The alternatives to the eviction, cash for keys, okay? That has worked incredibly well for us. We've done it a few times, maybe I would say 3 times, where I said, you know what, this is not working. You owe me, I don't know, whatever the amount is. Let's just call it quits. On top of that, I'm gonna give you $1,000 for you to move out, and I get possession in 2-3 weeks. I need the property, and I need the property in the best possible condition. I don't want to do a go rehab because they could vandalize the property, right? So in fact, we just did a cash for keys about 2 weeks ago, but this was not on a rental. This was on a purchase. So we got a property on the contract. It's an REO, and guess what? It was occupied. But before we got it on the contract, we talked to the tenant, and then we told the tenant, hey, listen, we're buying the property in the next month, but we need to have possession of the property by then. When we close on the property, we need to have possession. And before we close on the property, we need to have access for appraiser, contractor, in your premises. In exchange, we're going to give you $3,000. And they said, okay. So we signed a cash for keys agreement. It's called promise to vacate. And then we're going to send you that agreement, by the way. So with $3,000, they were over the moon. I didn't even know them, right? But they moved on time. They cleaned the house. They didn't leave anything behind. They gave us the keys. In exchange, boom, we brought them a check for $3,000. Okay, but by doing that, we had access to the property before closing, and then even we took possession about a week before closing. Okay, so it's just the best way. It's a win-win for both, right? For the tenant and for us. And the same applies for rentals, okay? Cash for keys by far beats any eviction proceedings, okay? It's cheaper, quicker, more efficient, everyone wins, okay? So now let's move on. Okay. Cash for keys. Okay, so now let's move on to the questions. Let me see. Let's answer some of the questions here on the line. Oh, okay. So great question, Lisa and John. We use both. So they want to compare rent application with Smart Move. We use both. Okay, Smart Move, I would say, is more accurate. Okay, so we've had cases where in a Smart Move, we've seen evictions, whereas rent application didn't show the eviction. So it's your choice. They're both good, but there was one case where we did find a discrepancy between rentapplication.net and Smart Move, but we use them both, okay? And actually, our leasing agent uses Smart Move. So that's the one that we use the most, but we've used rent application as well. We just like how it works. Another question is, great question, Lisa. The next question is, what about using Zillow's rental manager for rent applications? Also free. Bradley, great question. I don't like it, okay? We have 2, 3, 4 applications coming through. Like we just leased out a unit in Elmwood Park about a month ago, and then we had like 4 or 5 applications through Zillow Rent Manager. Nobody followed through. I mean, through the rent application through Zillow, I'm not able to see credit scores. I'm not able to see evictions. I'm not able to see background checks. I think I just didn't like it. So to get a tenant, I really need a great tool, resource for it. So I'm not going to use the Zillow rental. If they submit it through Zillow rental, we will call them, and then we're going to have them apply through either rent application or Smart Move. That's it. If they don't move forward with that, we don't consider them serious. That's it. Great question, okay? Another question is, does a landlord have to pay interest on the security deposit? Absolutely, Nicole. It's supposed to be an escrow interest-bearing account, okay? So it has to pay, and there's a chart in the landlord ordinance as to the interest that you have to pay. So those are the things that, you know, are difficult to follow, and if you miss them, if you don't pay them interest, then you're violating one of the laws, right? And that's just a reason for you to pay double the security deposit. So that is why most landlords, especially in the city of Chicago, they only take moving fees to stay away from all these laws that protect the tenants 100%. Another question is, how do you do the cash for keys? Do you give them more money for the keys apart from the money they are owing? Yes. So like the tenant, when the tenant that orders $3,000, I called her and I said, listen, you owe me $2,000. I'll tell you what, I need the unit by the end of the month, and you don't need to pay me the $2,000, and on top of that, I'm gonna give you $1,000. So my loss was gonna be $3,000, but I needed the unit. And then that sent a message, right? I don't want that because she's been with us for quite some time. So she said, Hugo, I promise I'm gonna get caught up. I'm going through financial difficulties. I say, okay, I understand. So we left it as is. And then about 2 weeks later, they gave us a $2,000 check. She's still there. She helps out with the cleaning. So it's a win-win solution, okay? We still have that tenant. But yes, you have to let go of the money they owe you. Plus, you want to give them something, $500 up to $1,000 just for them to move out. And like what I've done in the past as well is that not only do I give them, let's say, $500 for call quits, whatever they owe us, but I bring people to move their stuff. Okay, I say, don't worry, we'll make sure that your stuff is out because I want possession of the premises ASAP. Another question is, should the cash for keys be in writing? Absolutely. So we're going to give you the cash for keys document. It's called promise to vacate. Super important. Everything in real estate has to be in writing. Otherwise, it's not enforceable. Another question is, what should be the combined household income percentage against the rent being charged? So it's the rule of the 40. So take the rental income, take the rent. Let's assume the rent is 1,500, multiply that times 40, 60,000. So the combined household income for the prospective tenants should be 60,000, okay? And I have every single adult, every single working adult fill out an application, okay? So if it's the husband, the wife, they both need to fill out an application. And then we also need to verify the income. Super important, but multiply the income times 40, that works amazing. So obviously, the more they make, the better. But again, if they have an eviction record, it doesn't matter if they make 50, 60 times the rent amount, we won't take them. Also, if they have pets that are dangerous, like I think they're like top 10 breeds of dogs that are super dangerous, we won't take them, okay? Even if they meet all the requirements, we won't take them. Another question is, what screening do you do on Section 8 tenants? What is the criteria that you use for Section 8 tenants? Great question, Shirley. Okay, so Section 8 tenants, they have already been screened. You're not going to get criminals. They are great people. What I've seen with Section 8 people is that they don't have good credit. Some of them, okay, I cannot generalize. I've seen 540, 560, low credit score, okay, because they have delinquencies. But guess what? I don't really care because the rent is not paid by them. The rent is paid by the state or the government. And their portion is based on their income. And that could change even on a monthly basis. If they get a job or if they make more money, their portion is going to go up, okay? But I love Section 8 tenants, okay? Not only that, but some of them, their voucher is super, super strong, okay? So they can afford to pay what you're commanding. Some of these gray rental markets where we're renting the property for 1,700, 1,800, guess what? They have voucher for 2,000. So I love Section 8 tenants. So the criteria for them is less stringent because they've been screened already, but still we have them fill out an application just as part of the protocol, okay? Another question is, have you had experience with Section 8 tenants doing more damage on the property, not taking care of the property? You know what? We have not. It's been regular wear and tear. In fact, we've had great Section 8 tenants because also, you know, if they damage the property big time, their voucher is on the line. Okay, so they really need to comply with certain conduct, otherwise they can jeopardize their voucher. So my experience is that they're great people. Okay, so I love Section 8 people, Section 8 tenants. Okay, another one is radon disclosure required. I'm a managing broker, so yes, I have to disclose radon, mold, and lead-based paint. Radon, just to explain what it is, it's a gas that comes from under the ground, but that doesn't affect units that are like on the second, third level, okay? That affects units on the first floor. So as a managing broker, I do need to disclose radon, okay? Another question is, with Section 8 tenants, should the house be under your name or put it on an LLC? Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, the lease could be under your name and them, or it could be under an LLC. That doesn't really matter. Okay. So great questions. Are there any other questions on the line? Another question is, does Section 8 tenant pay utilities? Yes, they pay all the utilities. Okay. So when you fill out all the paperwork, their packet, you submit the lease to the Section 8 authority. They're going to review what the tenant pays, what you pay, but obviously for single family homes, they pay all the utilities. So the Section 8 will take that into account for the rent rent portion, okay? If it's we have a Section 8 tenant on a 3 flat, so they only pay for electric and gas. They don't pay for water, okay? So it depends on the property. Another question is, are you finding it easy to get tenants at this time, Mark? Yes, the rental market is very strong. So we rented a property in Elmwood Park. This is the key to get good tenants, having a good product. So when you rehab a property and you put a nice kitchen, nice looking bathroom, that it's in good shape, it's gonna rent super, super fast. But again, that is why we're gonna share with you the top rental markets so that you focus on building your rental empire in the top rental markets that are reasonable, affordable for you to buy properties, single family homes, and yet rents are through the roof, over 1,500 for a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. So super, super important. Another question is, do you run background checks on Section 8 tenants? Great question, Lisa. I don't. You know why? Because Section 8 authority has already done that for them. So you won't get like criminals in Section 8. Okay, so you're gonna get good people. That's what it boils down to. Okay, my experience with Section 8 is that you're gonna get mostly single moms with 2-3 kids. Okay, so they're good people. They may have low income, they may have part-time jobs, they may not have the best credit, they may have some delinquencies, but they are okay people. When it comes to personality, working with them, I think we've had great experiences with them because they've done the work for us, the screening. So we're not so stringent with them. And they won't have evictions. Okay, that's my experience. Section 8 tenants have not had evictions, and because you're getting the money from the state, the government, so it's pretty safe to go with Section 8 tenants. Okay, and not only that, but in my experience in the past, they're even willing to offer for you more than what you're asking for the rent. Okay, so they want to maximize their voucher. So if you're renting it for 1,500, they say, well, my voucher is for 1,700. Max out, charge me 1,550, 1,600. It all depends, right? Because Section 8 needs to take into account the utilities. The whole thing needs to be taken into account. So it's a possibility, but obviously we haven't done that. So if the rent is 1,500, whether you have a voucher or not, it's 1,500. Okay, so we don't want to, again, you would be violating a source of income protected class. So you don't want to discriminate by source of income, which is Section 8. You don't want to charge them more if it's a Section 8, even if you could. You don't want to say no to Section 8 because that's a protected class, source of income, Section 8. That can get you in trouble. Okay, the only thing that you can discriminate against is financials, meaning if they don't make enough money to pay for the rent. Okay, so if they make, based on the rule of thumb that I gave you, if the rent is 1,000 and they make 30,000, forget it. And it's okay. You're not going to be in trouble if you discriminate against financials. But anything else is protected. You cannot discriminate against anything. So it's very, 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 you have to be super careful. And sometimes they have what they call testers, right? You think it's a prospective tenant, guess what? It's a tester. So it's somebody sent by the state to test if you're going to discriminate against any of the protected classes. Okay, so super, super important. If you get a Section 8 tenant, you cannot say, no, I don't rent to Section 8 tenants. That'll be a big violation, especially if you have a broker's license. You can get reprimanded, okay? So yeah, no, we like Section 8 tenants. Another question is, does your property management group take care of hiring the contractors of repairs as well as broken toilets? Yes. I'm going to share that with you, Michael. Great question. Walter, Hugo, legally, you must treat Section 8 like you do everyone else. Of course, if you screen non-Section 8, you must do the same with Section 8. Okay, so Walter, Bob, thank you. Yes. So what Bob is saying is that if we're screening somebody that is non-Section 8, we should do the same. Like make them fill out the application. Um, you know what the Section 8 people have done? They said, Hugo, I don't want to take a hit on my credit. This is my rent application, my background check, my everything right here. So we just take that because again, they're Section 8. So as long as they provide some sort of application, we're okay with it. Okay, but we're not gonna like enforce it. Okay, we won't take you should you not fill out this application. Because again, I really like Section 8. Working with Section 8, you get the money on time. They do yearly inspections, which you might find it weird. I like it, but that's just a way for us to keep up the property in good standing. So yeah, thank you everyone. Great point, Bob. Um, Another question is, how long does Section 8 approval take? Great question. So this could take, that's the first question that I asked the tenant because it depends on the county. I said, how quickly can you get an inspector in the property? Because they need to inspect the property before they move forward. They sign the lease or all the paperwork. Sometimes they can get an inspector as quick as next week. Sometimes it could take up to 3 weeks. But right now with the pandemic, they are doing like virtual. So you can pretty much walk them through the property virtually, send them pictures, and they're going to be okay. So right now you can move a lot quicker than before. But yeah, it depends on the section. I mean the county where the Section 8 resides. So sometimes it could be fast, sometimes it could be slow. But yeah, that's only one of my concerns, that right now the rental market is so strong that, let's say I get 2 tenants, but then one is Section 8, the other one is not. The one that is not says, I'm ready to move forward. This is my application, my money, everything works out. And Section 8 says, hey, Hugo, everything looks good. I can move in as soon as I get the inspection done. But that inspection done may not happen until next month. So that's a problem, right? Because you might end up with a vacancy. That's the only drawback if you decide to go with Section 8. Another drawback that you have with Section 8 is that once you lock them in with a yearly lease amount, it is very, very hard to get rent increases, okay? Super hard. They may approve maybe a 2-3%, whereas if you rent to non-section tenants, I mean, we like to increase the rent by like $50. Section 8 may not allow to do that. So it's pro and con, right? So you get secure money, yearly inspections, but you may not be able to increase the rent as much as you would like to. It's a give and take, right? You have your money on time, but you may not be able to increase the rent in the long run. So it's just a personal choice. Another question is, have you heard of photoshopping an application when people do not, what does it say? When people do not ask you to screen them. Oh, okay, yes. Absolutely, Bob. Thank you. So some people they said, "Oh, I already filled out an application. I'm gonna send you this application." Absolutely, we don't take that. You have to fill out our application from either rent application or smart move. There's no way back. Okay, you have to do that. Some of them they want to skip that process. If they're not Section 8, we don't allow that. Okay, like they fill out the application through Zillow Manager. We don't allow that. If you're interested, you need to pay the $40 to SmartMove or rentapplication.net, and then we're going to consider you. If you don't want to do that, if you want to skip that step, we cannot work with you. Yeah, we've had that case. And also, we've had a case where somebody forged a pay stub. Okay, so be very careful. Okay. Sometimes, you know, that could happen. They forge pay stubs. So that is why we get pay stubs and bank statements. So we want to make sure that in the bank statement, we see when the rent is going out and when their income is coming in. Super important. Bank statements, I cannot stress that enough. Super important. You want to make sure that they pay on time, because even if you check the references, the previous landlord is not going to say bad things about the tenant because maybe they want to get rid of the tenant. So you always check the bank statement. And some tenants say, well, we pay cash for for the rent. Okay, that's not a great sign. We want to see trace of your income coming in and your rent coming out. Super important. Great question. Thank you, Bob. Are there any other questions on the line? Because now I'm gonna give you all these great resources, okay? So if no further questions, I wanna give you the resources that we use, okay? So are you guys okay with it right now, or are there any other questions? Can I go ahead and give you all the great stuff that I have for you today? Yes, is that a yes? Okay, perfect. Let's do it, guys. So let's do it. So I'm gonna give you our resources. So first of all, I've put, you're gonna be using for rent application either Smart Move or rentapplication.net. Okay, that's one of them. Now, the property management company we use, let me go to the browser. Let me share their contact information. So on their preferred partners, okay, let me share the screen on ChicagoDealVault. So we just uploaded over 100 resources. So on their preferred partners tab, look for property management. Right here, okay, we added several of them, but the one that we really love is this one, the first one, Secure Pay One. Okay, why? Because again, they charge you a flat fee, so we pay $50 per door. Okay, it doesn't matter if the rent is $2,000, $3,000, we only pay $50 per month, and we give them a list of our contractors depending on the trade. So if it's a plumbing issue, dispatch Joe. If Joe is not available, dispatch Peter. And then for, let's say, electric, dispatch Jose. If Jose is not available, dispatch John, and so forth, right? So we give them the list of our contractors, so when they get a phone call from the tenant and it's a plumbing issue, boom, they know who to dispatch. Okay, so they're gonna use our crew, and they can pay our crew or we pay our crew directly. Okay, so use them. Surely, yeah, there's a recording for these. Now, the second thing that I wanted to share with you is, so we have the property management company that we use. Okay, contractors, we have added a lot of contractors and handyman that we use. Okay, so let me show you from plumbers. So plumbing, boom, we added our plumbers right here. And then what else do we have? We added roofing. We added, I think we added handymans right here. So the handyman, the people that we use and dispatch, it's right in here. Title services or carpentry. So here we have a couple of handyman that we use on their carpentry. Where else? Appliances. Oh, we added appliances. This is big as well. Okay, so please make sure that you check every category. Oh, evictions and collections, friends. This is the if you decide to do an eviction, hopefully you won't. We use this company. Okay, so that's an attorney. They take care of the entire thing for you. So evictions, and then through the property management, if you work with them or if you need a server, we're gonna, I don't think we have this server. Let me see if it's this. Yeah, I believe this is it. So remember that I told you that if you are serious about sending the 5-day notice, that's him, Tom. So Expediter, so he's going to do the serving for you. Okay, they're gonna charge anywhere from 75 to 95. Or you can ask Secure Pay One. They have a great server in-house. Okay, so most property management companies use a server. So, but otherwise, we have them right here. Oh, electricians. Let me show you. Right here, electricians. Boom, we added the electricians that we use. So guess what? We give this list to Secure Pay One. So when there's an issue, boom, if it's a plumbing, they know who to dispatch. If there's an electrician, or an electric issue, boom. So we say dispatch number 1, if not available, number 2, if not available, number 3. So we never get a phone call, okay? Super important. Also, let me give you this. We just added a section. This is awesome, guys. There's a new tab called Contracts and Documents. Right here, we have the rental packages. So the mall disclosures, the written disclosures, the lease, the lead-based payment. So this is huge, guys. And if you are a real estate broker, you also have to have a non-agency agreement disclosure. Okay, so it's huge right here. So the lease that we use, all you need to do is, boom, just click on it and then you open that. What else do we have? We have a lease, rate disclosure, mall disclosure, agent disclosure, rental application, should you need that one. We have a lease addendum, lead-based paint. So all the leasing packages that you may need are right here at your fingertips. So it's a new tab that we created in ChicagoDealVault. It's called Contracts and Documents. So right here for your property management is all you need. So what we do is we give these documents to the property management company. So they're going to DocuSign. So they use DocuSign on all these documents to the new perspective. And again, you want to use rentapplication.net. This is it. Or Smart Move, either one of them. They're both good. Okay, I really like them both. Okay, let me see. Did I, Phil, is there anything else that we need to add? Another question is, does ChicagoDealVault members have a special? Absolutely. So when you mention that you're a ChicagoDealVault member, you're gonna get special rates, okay, for all our preferred partners for sure, including Secure Pay One, okay? So again, we pay $50 per door, which is really, really cheap. I hate all these other companies that they charge you a percentage of the rent. I was so upset. Why are you going to tap into my rental income on a yearly basis when I increase my leases? No, flat fee, okay? Typically, it's like around 75 per door. We pay 50 through Secure Pay One, so you can get to use them. Another question is, Rosa Nieves, Section 8 manager, tell her Francisco recommended her. She's a very good in getting great tenants. Oh, okay. So process the rate community for rental success and value. Also, our leasing agent, he is amazing. Okay, so if you have a rental, so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna put it in the MLS. We're gonna put it in Zillow. We're gonna put it in Craigslist. Okay, we may do Facebook. We're testing that, but we're also gonna give it to our leasing agent, Mark Goodman. Okay, so Phil, do me a favor. Can you please send out Mark's contact information? So he's awesome. Okay, he's been amazing at leasing out some of our units. So you get to use him as well. Okay. In fact, for the cash for keys that we did recently, about 2 weeks ago, he helped us do that. Oh yeah, the cash for keys document. Hey Phil, can you please send me the link in a private message for the cash for keys? Or friends, if you need anything, please send us a message to support at ChicagoDealVault.com. Okay, and guess what? If you don't have access to ChicagoDealVault and all these great resources, we're going to give it to you for free for the next 30 days. Phil, can you please send the instructions for people to get free access to DealVault? And the promo code is property management. Okay, property management, all one word. You're going to get free access to everything that I show you, all the resources. And please make sure that you register for the event. You're going to get the replay tomorrow. We just pasted, let me send you Mark's contact information. Okay, thank you, Mark. So in fact, guys, I didn't ask Mark if I could share his information. I'm sure he's gonna be okay. So do me a favor, if you are interested or you have a unit to lease and you need a leasing agent, send us a message to support@ChicagoDealVault.com. We're gonna make sure that we get you in touch with Mark. But I didn't call Mark first to share his contact information with everyone. So we'll be happy to do that. I'm sure he wants more business. Another question is, have you ever used rent prep screening services? No, Ron, I have not. We're really happy with Smart Move and rentapplication.net. So no, I haven't used that one, so I cannot speak about that one. So friends, please make sure that you do have access to all our resources, get free access, 30 days, so that you get all the rental package, that you get a hold of all our contractors, the property management we use,